let me just thank everybody, since we're pausing a moment, for doing the potluck. We did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. People were asking, and I said, we're Episcopalians. We made it work. And do I know all the rules yet, or how it's gonna work? Doesn't matter. And you did it. Thank you.
Lots of, you're going to feel very thanked, hopefully today, because we're going to start with my introduction of Lori Kadrich, who is the chair of stewardship and resulted in a successful campaign.
Thank you, Dan. Good morning, everyone. My role is very easy. I just get to thank everyone for participating in our stewardship campaign this year. And congratulations, our giving in total was greater than pre-COVID, which I think is remarkable. And so we've had a great rebound. Doesn't mean that we're out of the woods yet in terms of being able to make everything work the way that we would like to. But we have a tremendous start. And as you'll see in the budget presentation, we have more than an ability to make up the gap. And so I'm excited about that. We did lose a few pledges, but we gained more than we lost. And the average increase of giving went up 6.5%, which is tremendous. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are indeed blessed. We can go to the next slide, and you also have a copy of this. There's actually nothing all that remarkable about this budget other than the increase in giving, which was wonderful, which helps a great deal. Nothing increased a giant amount, and the increase we had was offset by some decreases. So the increased amount that we have in pledges is higher than the increased amount we have in expenses. This is still a deficit budget, and we'll have Genevieve talk about that a little bit. As you take a look, and we'll give you an opportunity as we start the discussions for you to really dive into this. But you can see that the pledge income increased 6.5%, which means that our total income increased more than 5%. That's wonderful. That's not happening in every church, I can tell you. Looking at the expenses, that top line that says mission and ministry, that includes all of those intended lines below, the altar, guild, Christian formation, clergy, et cetera, et cetera. So all of the mission and ministry is $238,000 this year, which is an increase under 2% from the actual last year. In that, there was a reduction in non-clergy salaries because we no longer are sharing a youth director.
We're sharing 2 youth people, but they are working, they're being paid a lot less.
Okay, so we had a youth director that was sharing that salary, and now we have 2 people working and making less. So that was a sizable reduction. I will say that all the staff who wanted raises, we increased 4%. That is less than cost of living. Many of us with gray hair in this room realize more than an 8% increase in our Social Security benefits this year. But we felt that 4% would show our gratitude, and it was what we could do. So know that that's an increase. Building and grounds increased. How we pay building and grounds is we pay a % of pledge and plate to Trinity. It went up, the percent went up this year from 11% to 13% because actual costs went up. Insurance in particular. Insurance is very high. So those costs went up this year. Question was asked during the vestry meeting Well, what is Trinity paying? And Trinity is paying 22% of their pledge and plate. So we are still very blessed again to be here, but you'll
So,
see.
Jan, previously that was based somewhat on the population, what's the word I'm looking for, the average daily attendance. You know, so they had more people than we do. Is that still true? Is that based on that?
No, it's pledge and plate.
Pledge and plate, but based, you know, we have less people giving into our pledge and plate than they.
It doesn't, it's pledge and plate. If we have fewer people
So is there
pledging
a
and
reason that they pay more?
Your pledge and plate is higher than ours.
Well,
No, that
No,
was the same
it's,
percentage.
it's the same percent.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Trinity accepts some building costs as being their legacy because they built it.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
so like on the property committee, we talk about all the insurance and things that are variable, but there are some things that are fixed that Trinity just accepts.
Got it. Thank you.
So that, you can see that the building and grounds percent went up. Again, it was a higher percent and we have higher pledge and plate. Administration went down. Why did administration go down, Martha? We're just doing.
Way to go, Melissa.
So what I do want to point out, and what I will invite Genevieve to address, is this is still a deficit budget. And it is a deficit budget because we have faith that we will increase the number of people coming. We will just increase the giving all around. And I think under a $20,000 deficit budget shows good faith, and we're all comfortable with that. And the vestry was comfortable with that. The vestry voted yes. This is another year with a deficit budget. It can't continue as a deficit budget year after year, but we're not worried about it at all. Yes, ma'am.
Just a comment, I've been with the church since the late 60s, and they've always had a deficit budget. All of those years, every one of those years. And somehow, God provided, we always paid it by the end of the year.
Yes, indeed. Sir,
Where would our contribution to the diocese be shown?
it is in outreach. And when you see outreach not designated, that is the 10% to the diocese, 2.5% to the region.
1.25%.
Well, that's what they want, 5. They want 5. We pledged 2.5 last year and we pledged 1.25 this year. So that's where that is.
Thank you.
And that's basically all that is. Outreach, we find, for instance, for the Haiti project and for other projects, when it is designated, it is more successful.
People tend to give.
People give to a designated project rather than just adding it to a big pot. So Haiti appeals to some people, other ministries appeal to other people, and the giving is higher. Sir,
Is then that in the outreach, not designated, all that is for the diocese and for the region? All of it.
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think we have anything else. I
There
don't think
isn't
we have
anything.
anything else in there.
no.
Isaac?
Pardon?
Isaac, I think we took
Yes.
that one out as well this year.
So,
I think we removed it this year.
it's not good.
I think-
We
I
can
think we did.
designate, let's do one question at a time.
No, I think we are, you know, all the other churches in the area.
Right.
Members of that, the immigration task force. It's an important ministry. And I just assume that would continue. to, because many of us on the task force are individual. members.
I'm gonna double check right now.
Let's do Rhoda and then Terry.
It's, related, and then it's, do we know, or do we have a way to collect that information that we have non-designated, let's call it other outreach? And so the amount of time, talent, and money given to FFH or ISAC or whatever, do we track that at all?
The direct
Yes,
giving.
the direct
Yes.
giving,
Oh,
yes.
that's what
It's in the
called.
designated, it's a designated gift. This says specifically
I know it
non-designated.
does.
So,
That was my question. Do we track
yes,
designated as best we can?
yes.
Oh, we do, not as best we can, we absolutely do. There's a spreadsheet that you'll see in the annual report in a couple of weeks that shows all the designated, the balances at the end of the year. So when the Haiti donations come in, they go in the designated line, we track it all individually. And just so people know, since we're not, sorry to step in here. Since we're a nonprofit, if somebody gives a donation to the church and says, I want you to spend it on locally Haiti, then we're required by law to send that money to locally Haiti or to spend it on hospitality or whatever the donor restricts that donation to, just like they do at universities if you donate to your alma mater or anything. So we track it all. We risk losing our nonprofit status if we don't. So it's an important thing.
And
We
it will
absolutely
be
track all
in
of it.
the, as you look at the annual report, and yes, and
There's
you
a
can
separate
ask for it
section.
any time,
Anytime.
and we can, to just carry on with that. You will be receiving a financial statement every month linked to the epistle. So you will be able to see yourselves what we're doing,
Designated.
and if you want us to add designated, that's what we'll do. Terry?
Well, this is one bothering me since I came to St. Paul's, is not to have how much we give to the diocese, et cetera, as a simple line item. Because to me, that's not necessarily the same kind of outreach as true mission and ministry. And I feel that this church, in order to grow, needs to have a committee or a group to determine where priorities are in terms of giving. So people, it's great that they want to give to me, but suppose we got together and talked about what our together feeling is about where mission and ministry should look.
Can you hold that? Because I'm gonna take notes at the last slide because those are the very questions we asked in the last slide. Those very questions about how can we be better stewards? What can we do more of, et cetera? And so we'll boom through that.
We do track it individually. We just, on this slide, we summarize it. We have like 3 pages. If I print out the entire report and everything, it's 3 pages. We didn't want to give you guys 3 pages.
And this
So
is.
we've
the-
summarized it here, but we do have individual line items for the diocese and the
Right.
region
So we do.
in our accounts.
Thank you.
Well, I think I know the answer to this question, but what happened to our interest in applying?
That's
We're
the
gonna get
next,
to that too, the
that's the
investment.
next slide.
We'll get to that.
Any other questions just about the general operating? Nancy?
I think we don't give nearly enough for the nursery workers. That's why we can't give it.
We do have one higher. We have one higher now.
Oh, good.
I do want to circle back about Isaac too. We did remove that from the budget. The only thing in that outreach line is just the diocese and the Front Range region. So that totals that 30,000.
And we will, Terry, we will address that in the next slide, yes?
I just want to say, I'm really disappointed to see that we're downgrading our contribution to the diocese. I just feel it's important.
You mean to the
We are.
region? The diocese were not.
That's to the region.
We are.
To the region, we are down to 1.25. We've been very generous to the region. The diocese, we are still at 10%. Yes, yeah, and we are committed to doing that. So the diocese,
I don't know what this region is.
Front Range region, there are like five regions the
Janine, we're
diocese
gonna
is grouped
get-
into.
we'll
Okay,
get
down
into
this
some-
world.
yeah.
Okay.
yes, sir.
The only thing, Robin, so like, I understand the increased cost, but I'm curious of is it enough for Trinity to, you know, is our increased amount enough? You know, like.
It is
you know,
what
Trinity's
Trinity
getting
asks.
more- Yeah, it's
Yeah.
more the, are we funding enough? Or are we- Okay,
It is what Trinity asked.
okay.
So, yeah. And yes,
Because like water costs, we bought this year, electricity rate, like.
Yeah.
Gas.
You might explain that the
Right.
co-op committee, that those kind of decisions are made together with the three partners.
not. But that happens with the building committee. I would like to have, are there any other questions specific to the numbers here? Were you about to raise your hand, Pete? No. So the next slide,
Well, no, don't go to that yet. You said you wanted me to talk about the deficit budget, which is not the next slide. The next slide is investments. Do you want to move to the investments or not?
we are not, Becky, to answer your question is, there is no investment income.
If we're going to that, then
So this is,
I want to say also this number for 2022 actuals you see up here, this is not a final number. When we had to do the budget, it was before we had final numbers. We just got final numbers this week. We worked on the budget in November and December. So in 2 weeks, you'll see the actual final numbers. It's close to this, but it's not exactly this. But we did end the year. You talked about, Anita, you talked about in years past how the church always made it work at the end of the time. It didn't work last year. We're negative $21,000 last year. We spent more than what came in. And we can't do that very long before we have no more money to do that with.
I think COVID probably just slammed for a lot of people.
I'm sure that's the case, yeah, but I just want to be clear that it is negative this year. We didn't end up, we passed deficit budget, but we didn't make it up, unfortunately, so.
What fund did you take that money out of?
You could think of it as kind of like a reserves from years past where we had net positive income, kind of gets tucked away. I don't want to get into the accounting of it, but it's kind of tucked away. So we have that reserves. It's in what's called the net asset account. It's like an equity account, if you're familiar from a business perspective. So we can do this as long as that reserves from all the past years
Yeah.
is enough. This year it's enough, but we can't do this for more than like 3 more years. We can't have 20,000. So if we don't make it up this next year, then we only have 2 more years before we don't have any more money. I'm sorry, that's the truth.
Why don't you show that somewhere?
It's
The
right
amount-
here
No, the amount of money that's.
in the reserves. You'll see it in 2 weeks in the final financial statements because it's on the balance sheet. This is the income statement. So,
Thank you.
okay. Do you want to go to
so,
investments?
as I
or-
said, the budget to actual, month to month, you will have every month. As a link in the epistle, if you're curious, if you're a number geek. So next slide.
Okay.
we will
The
have-
next slide, we're going to talk about the investments. Before you do that, go straight to the, we'll do the slide, just go to the next slide first, and then we'll move to the Excel spreadsheet. So what I'm going to talk about the investments for a little bit, because I think a lot of people have a lot of questions.
you
There's a
all
lot of
hear her?
confusion.
Yeah.
Can they hear me on Zoom? Does anybody know? I say they can, okay. For the investments, I'm going to explain what happened last year and talk about. But
One of those is ours.
this happens when the tide goes out. It looks really bad and really ugly, but you know what? The tide will come back in and all the boats will be floating again. We are not magicians. Our investment advisors are not magicians. If the whole tide goes out really bad, like it did this last year, that's us, but that's all of us. There's a lot of people. If you look at your retirement portfolios, they probably all went down as well. We're not special. We're not magic. Our investment advisors did the best they can, but we just sit tight. And I have to thank Gloria, if she's in here, for the phrase that she said at the table, which is a good one, which is We haven't actually lost it unless we sold. As long as we don't sell investments, we haven't really lost it. It's what they call paper losses, unrealized gains and losses. So the tide will come back in. We just have to wait for it to come back in.
Can I interrupt for one thing? Because we all know, every one of us, were a part of that investment paper loss. And yet, every one of you gave to the church. So it kind of doubles, we increased when it likely would have been negative. Because we're all sort of in the same storm, just in a different boat up here. So it's a double thank you.
Okay, now we'll switch to Excel. I want to go through an example with you guys to explain how we do the accounting of this.
Oh, great, I lost Excel.
That's okay. Just start it up, go on the search button. Well, it's- Where do you find programs? There you go. Share that. Go ahead and start this one. It might be on here, actually, since we're-
Okay, good.
Okay. What I'm gonna do is, just to make this easier to understand, I'm gonna do an example. Is that working, Mike?
Yeah, it was just, it blanked, so I wasn't sure you had the right one, but I
Oh.
see it.
I think it takes a second to load. What I want to talk about is this concept of what's called total return. Total return is something that is something that's made up of several pieces go into total return. One of those things is dividends that are paid by stocks that you own. One of those is interest income that is paid if you own any bonds, they pay interest income, or if you have a CD at the bank, it pays interest income. Then we have what's called realized gains and losses. And we have unrealized gains and losses. Okay. Is that big enough up on the screen up here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's that? Okay. So total return is made up of these four pieces of types of income, okay? And it's important to realize the way we record it in the books of the church, we record it all grouped together. So it's all grouped together. So I'm gonna walk you through, let's say we bought a stock, we bought a stock a year ago, okay? And so we bought one share, purchased for $100. $100, okay? We spent $100 to purchase that share of stock. Over the year, it looks like I can't spell when everybody's looking.
You're the numbers person, it's okay.
Thanks. It's because everybody's watching me as I'm typing, that's why it never works well. So we purchased one share of stock for $100, okay? Over that coming year, that stock paid a dividend of, let's say, $2, okay? And then the stock, as you know, the stock prices fluctuate every day, every minute, every second on the stock market, right? When the markets are open, they fluctuate. So during that year, we got a payment of dividends for $2 and the stock market fluctuated. That one share that we owned that we bought for $100 is now worth $80. Okay, so it's what I'll say fair market value, which is a common term of the one share 1 year later is $80. Okay, so we had a loss. That means we had a loss of $20, right? We lost value in that one share that we owned of $20. But if we don't sell it at $80, we haven't really lost it. We just hang on tight for the roller coaster ride. but we've technically lost $20 in the value. That -20 and the $2 both get recognized on the financial statements in our investment income line. So our investment income in that year, so I'll say total return, investment income is equal to the -20 plus, we did get $2 of a dividend. So we ended up with a -18 on our income statement. We lost $18, but we still own the one share. As long as we don't sell that share, we haven't really lost that number, but we have to record that on our books that way. Any questions so far? Okay. The next year that we own it, let's say that we get another dividend of $2 and the market goes back up. So then the fair market value of one share another year later, so this is like year 2. In year 2, let's say that is $90, okay? So it actually, what we're measuring in the financial statements that year, we're saying it's $90, but our starting point was $80 because we measure in that calendar year. So that is, we have then a net gain. And we still got this dividend here. So our total gain in that year is actually the $2 plus the $10. It's $12 is what's going to show in our financial statements in the gain in the second year.
What's that called, the $12?
The $12, that would be our total return for year 2. Oops. Total return for year 2. So we could show a gain in year 2, but that $12 is still less than the $20. So when you look at the 2 years together, we're still down $8. Okay. So the -20 is what happened to us this year. What they call paper losses, unrealized. We haven't sold. There has been movement in our portfolio, but there's a lot of stuff that we buy and hold and keep. Did you want to add something, Jan?
No,
Okay.
yeah.
So I'm-
here to get- Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on this? Yes.
Okay, so the stock market is volatile.
Yep.
And it can go up and it can go down. We're hoping that it goes up. Who's watching when it goes up so that we sell at the right time or that kind of stuff?
We have professional managers. The company is called Episcopal Church Foundation. They manage more than $500 million of money that's owned by various churches and dioceses in the country. So they're doing all the management. They're working with State Street Global Advisors to do that management. And I've got a little bit more of a write-up on that in a couple of weeks about that. So they're managing it, but they're also managing it based on the time parameters that we told them, which was we have most of the money in what we're calling a 4+ year fund. Which means when we put it in, we were not planning on needing to take any money out of it for more than 4 years. So they're managing it based on the idea that we can let it sit and let it ride the roller coaster for 4 years or more. We have a little bit of it in, so when we first divided it up, it was about 3 million that went into 4+ and about 1 million of the proceeds that went into the 1 to 2 year fund. So the 1 to 2 year fund is much more conservative, but honestly, last year, bonds and stocks both tanked. They both were ugly. There was no way to hide from the slaughter. So the S&P 500, is everybody familiar with what that is? Okay, the S&P 500 had a return in calendar year 2022 of -18.5%. It had a loss of -18%. The total bond index return had -13%. And that's because the Fed started rising interest rates. I don't want to get into why. Usually you don't have them happening at the same time, but it did. There was nowhere to hide except for cash, but then there was inflation that was eating away in the cash. So just because we have a negative doesn't mean that it's going to be negative forever. But I do want to be sure that everybody understands the idea of total return, interest plus dividends, plus these gains and losses of just recording the movement of what it's worth, is all of that shows up in one number in our financials. So technically we do earn dividend income, but as you can see in this example, not enough dividend income could outpace the 18% loss that our shares had. I saw Terry's hand first.
The other thing that you have to keep in your mind is that you're also paying fees. What percentage fees are you?
I think we're at 60 basis points, 30 base. I can't, I'll have to look.
Between the two of them, I think it turns out to be one.
I think it was less.
0.6 and 0.3.
0.6 and 0.3, so about 90 basis points. It's still under 1%, which is a little bit cheaper than common.
Yes.
But, yeah, and just thinking about the money though, so you're paying fees and you have inflation. So actually, the losses are greater.
Right.
Well,
to a person.
right, in this thing. So the number that we record on the books though actually does include all of the fees.
Yeah.
So it's all netted out together. But you're right, we are paying fees for that.
And so the income that's being thrown off from investments, is that being reinvested?
Yes, thank you. I meant to mention that. So all the dividends, and that's the other reason that it doesn't look like we have income. Because the dividends and interest and anything that's spitting off, that's those $2 and $3, we're reinvesting it and telling it to go right back into the portfolio because we're not intending to draw it down. And that's one of the ways that you capture total return and value over time in a portfolio is to constantly reinvest stuff. So that is what's happening in this portfolio.
That's assuming managers do better than next year.
It's assuming, well, it's going in, then the managers will do the best they can, given the information they have with, the markets and everything.
What's the name of the manager?
The manager, so it's State Street Global Advisors are the ones kind of making the decisions about which stocks to buy and sell. State Street Global Advisors, they manage, God, what was it? $1 trillion or something? Does that sound right, Terry?
Yes.
Is it about $1 trillion in assets under management? Really big. And then Episcopal Church Foundation kind of oversees and manages and the accounting, you could say, for our particular fund in the larger portfolio. So
And is there somebody at the diocese level that keeps track of that or?
No.
not keep track of what?
The investment.
So that's happening in the accounting. We get statements monthly, I
Short
think.
answer is no.
Not at the diocese.
Not at the diocese.
It's here at the
Not
church.
diocese.
As the chairman of the investment committee, I monitor that with Episcopal Church Foundation, and we get reports on a quarterly basis and we have Zoom meetings on a monthly basis.
Oh,
that I
yes.
participate in with the Episcopal Church Foundation people to monitor what's going on.
Yep.
And make any decisions for our particular investment portfolio.
And
Yes.
And if anybody, by the way, those monthly discussion sessions and phone calls, if anybody wants to participate in those, you can call in and listen to that if you'd like. We can start to put that out in the epistle when it comes, if you guys.
And they're recorded.
And they, yes.
Yeah.
And they're recorded. Betsy had the next question.
Terry asked it already.
Thank you.
Okay, okay.
Anybody
Good
else?
question.
Yes.
So you have the first year, there's a net loss, second year, there's a net gain. Where's the overall? For the life portfolio, like where are we showing?
Where would that show in our book, like on this stuff? So that would mostly be shown on the balance sheet, what the current value is of those assets. We didn't bring the balance sheet this time. You will see it in 2 weeks. You'll see it on the report in there, what the total value is. But the income statement, that gain, loss, dividend, and interest, that gets reset every year. So on January 1st this year, we had a new marker, a new starting point, like the $80 is our starting point at the beginning of this year. Markets can go up, but they may not go up enough to offset that. So where we see kind of the cumulative total, the current value of the portfolio is on the balance sheet. Any other questions? We're gonna start to put out the financial statements in the epistle. We're still trying to figure out to what level of detail to show. We're probably gonna keep it very summary level. So that
It will
it's
look a lot
easier.
like the previous slide in a summary level, and anybody who wants more.
Or less summary.
Certainly can get it.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah,
Just
let
let me
us
know.
know.
It's always available. You can send it out to anybody that wants to see it.
It's your money. So obviously you can know. It's God's money.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
You can also ask me after we're done here. I can stay around for a little bit if anybody has some.
Can we go back to the? Good questions, good questions. Thank you.
Good, good.
That's a great.
The tide will come back in.
Yeah.
You just have to wait long enough. So just,
Mommy.
I don't know that you're sharing. Is she sharing the slide? The slide deck again?
Okay. So, yes,
Is it still saying spreadsheet or?
here, Terry, I asked you if you would remember that question or your suggestion. Because this is really why we're here. The numbers are the numbers and you need to know them. How can we be better stewards? You would like to see more specific outreach, is that right? More specific, more deliberate attention to outreach.
Terry, that's slide history.
Huh?
Make the slide history, and I, it's a little hard to read.
Oh, start the presentation. Just to start the presentation on it. That should work. There you
Thank
go.
I think the question.
That worked for Zoom, Mike?
Is the-
Mark,
is
go
the
ahead.
Current spending.
don't know why it doesn't.
What is priority?
Can you repeat that?
My question, which is that one of the things the church does is mission and ministry outside the doors. And so that doesn't mean that necessarily does. Because that's something we have to do. But as a parish, are there some things that we want to invest in or help better at, perhaps? People become responsible for themselves, et cetera, et cetera. But there is no mission ministry committee. There is, because clearly if there's extra money, it's just going back to the diocese or make up for deficits. I wonder if instead of selling the annual campaign just to take care of the charity itself, if there was that opportunity for people to think of more. For instance, I gave additional money to Habitat for Humanity because I know that that is something I believe in and many other parishes also do. But I don't see where we together are working on specific things in the community outside of our church to help others.
And that's one reason why those funds are, or those projects, not funds, or ministries or projects or outreach. Those line items are held separately because you gave the Habitat, because you believe in Habitat. And what I'm hearing is your question, is there any committee, ministry committee, determining what those needs are, in addition to the social and eco-justice? We have a 301 Faith Partner Committee in the social and eco-justice, and they are looking at things, and they were the beginning of Isaac, and they are the beginning of many of these projects. Is it something that you think St. John's itself?
Paul's.
What?
St. Paul's.
Wow, St. Paul's itself, thank you, should be looking at? Is that a suggestion, and how are we better stewards of our funding?
I think that it is something.
Okay.
And I see no reason why we can't get to the organizations that want to.
All right.
Together, it's the opportunity to talk about things, to together gather information, and as a community, get, as opposed to individuals just changing, sending it directly.
Right.
So it provides another opportunity for working together.
Many things do come out in the epistle. When there are needs that are recognized in our community, you have the opportunity through the epistle. But we could have another that is just St. Paul's Parish doing
I got a question.
Anybody who's speaking in the back, the Zoom people are having a lot of trouble hearing. You just talk
Well,
a
they
little
can-
louder, because all we
You
have
can
is.
repeat it here. She can repeat it.
I'll
closer to
repeat the
microphone.
Or if
question.
you just repeat it,
Yeah.
then that's fine.
I'd like to address a question.
Come closer to the microphone so that they can hear
Right.
on Zoom.
With regard to our outreach, Terry, I agree with you that we as a parish or as a parish should give to what we believe in. And for the last 3 years, St. Paul's is, for the last 3 years, St. Paul's has had a program where the vestry each year has decided whether or not to support our giving to Habitat. And the way that has worked is we have published a number of times in the epistle throughout the year, you have an opportunity to give to Habitat and have your contribution doubled by church funds. And this year, over $2,000 was given by individual members. Joe Blow gives $100. The church then agreed, the vestry agreed this last spring to match that amount. So Habitat, instead of getting the $100 that Joe Blow gave, would get $200. Well, this year, the vestry again in spring agreed to support that or make that match. And we published information about that periodically in the epistle. This year, however, by the end of the year, we had collected, as I say, or designated funds, over $2,000 had been given. Yeah, I wish. But we had an anonymous donor who saw that our parish receipts this year, the investments, had done very poorly. And so the Habitat, Mike Werner, Jody Werner, and I made the collective decision that we would not ask the parish to match the funds again because the parish is hurt somewhat. And so an anonymous donor pitched in that extra $2,100 and some dollars, so that our contributions, everybody who contributed under that program, Joe Blow in this case, his $100 was matched to be $200 by an anonymous donor, not by the congregation. And in turn, that now $200, that matched fund, was matched again by Redeemer Lutheran Church. So our Joe Blow's contribution of $100 became $400 to build the home that many of us have worked on physically throughout the year. So that is one possibility to do, as Terry suggests, we as a congregation can give. I would like to point out, we had 6 donors this year. So that's not a whole lot of people, but that program will be again offered this year. I don't know if we will get vestry backing of it. That will be a decision the vestry will make. But if you as an individual want to give to a designated fund by putting on the memo line Habitat, it will go into that fund. And if we do get it matched by the vestry, it'll be doubled, and then by local and national sponsors, maybe doubled again, $4 to 1 on your investment. Thank you. And just to reconfirm, when you're making a donation, say to Habitat, do it through the church.
You have to do it through the church
Yeah, you can't
to
do
get
it
this match. If you send your own check to Habitat, they'll be very happy to have it, and God bless you for doing it, but it will not get matched by the church. And in this year, it may not be matched. As I say, this last year it was matched by an anonymous donor, but we hope that the vestry will again consider approving it again. Anita?
Right. Are we getting those minutes from the vestry? Because I don't remember seeing anything.
They used to be up.
The minutes, the vote was recorded in the minutes. It was in the March meeting, but I'm not sure about who gets the minutes or not.
They're not coming in on the epistle, right?
I don't believe so.
They used to be on the website, and they are no longer.
Okay, so thank you. That's why we're here.
Yep.
Thank you for that. So I have two. How can we be better
Minutes. We can
stewards?
send them out on the epistle, once they're finished and
Yeah.
approved. Then you
What?
can-
I think it also, it could be a cat. if you wanted to say.
It'll be a link, yeah. John,
Are there other ways of raising income? Is that what you're talking about at the annual meeting?
can we have one conversation? Go ahead.
Is there a way, there's other ways we could raise some funds? And is that something we talk about at the annual meeting or now? I'm talking about down at All Saints in Loveland. They rented out a small piece of property, built a tower, a microwave tower. They covered it up with a big cross, but they're getting several $1,000s a month income. Is that not something that we could raise with Trinity? If that's something we'd like. to do?
Let's ask,
Mike has an answer.
Mike got an answer.
The property committee has been approached by a company to do exactly that, build a cell tower. And that was about 1.5 years ago, and in the middle of the pandemic, everything stopped. But yes, the property committee has looked at that. And as far as I know, it's still an open item. It hasn't gone to the coordinating committee yet for any kind of a decision, but yes,
Because I think All Saints is getting about $4,000 a month income.
yeah.
And there's a big cross there, which is also,
Ugly as sin.
well. It's ugly. It's nice.
so
I,
next, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so it sounds like that's some things that they're looking into, have outside income. If we have outside income that's not through donations where people are paying for a service, we do have to pay taxes on that. It doesn't make everything in the church taxable, but we will then have to start filing a tax return, which we'll actually have to pay somebody to do. I do not file tax returns for anybody, by the way. Not even my parents or me. I don't even file my own. We do have to pay tax. It's called unrelated business income tax that we'll have to pay on that, but it still would be a net positive income flow. And so that is a good thing to
And
take
there
a look
may
at.
be,
Those are
there
great
may be
ideas.
other opportunities.
I'm just wondering the politics of the three joint committees.
I was gonna say, doesn't the property belong to Trinity?
That was one idea. I don't think we can vet that idea. That's,
Right now,
this is
no.
not the
This is
forum
just
for vetting
gathering.
that idea.
We're just gathering ideas.
Are there other ideas about how we can do more?
No, I just want, yeah, I want to ask a question. We look at this every week. Therefore, when it was very clear that Isaac needed some money and we didn't have other things that we could do, or we are. So, anyway, I called Nancy and I said, how do I send a check in? Where do I really send a check? Because I tried to send it into the first one and I couldn't go through all of their whatever. And so we sent the check straight to Isaac's. But if we were to send the check into
St. Paul's
St. Paul's,
and put Isaac in the memo line.
in Isaac in the memo line. But does that give Welpa something else to do? Or,
It's easy to
That's-
do.
yeah,
And
it's
that's how it really should be done.
yes. And
So-
that's a good idea, I think.
And the epistle is there that's one of the reasons the epistle is there, so that we can see those needs in the community that are new. We could not have anticipated the migrants coming from Denver to Larimer County. Right,
We
Ms.
could not have anticipated that, yes.
Lori, by the way, is the assistant county manager, so.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with Isaac.
Oh, it stands for, what's it
Well-
stand for? Interfaith, something. That's what I got.
We can I get back to you on that?
Absolutely.
And can we spell that out? Does anybody,
ISAAC is how it's
does
spelled.
anybody on Zoom have a question or a comment or any of the things that we've been talking about, a suggestion? I don't want to exclude people from home.
Charlotte had asked,
Charlotte asked if we have a sense of what the designated funds are to answer Terry's question.
Say it
We
again.
can, yes, we do. We know what the designated funds are,
Oh, yeah,
and we will
absolutely.
do that. We will include that,
The annual
with
report
it.
in 2 weeks.
and we will include that when we publish the statements every month. You can see where they are and what the
Yeah.
designated funds are.
And Judy says that Isaac stands for the Interfaith Solidarity and Accompaniment Coalition. Say it again, Lori, she was. The Interfaith Solidarity and Accompaniment Coalition.
So it deals with immigrants.
Yes.
ISAAC.
Yes.
Are there any other suggestions, either how we can be better stewards or what we can do more in terms of inreach and outreach? Inreach obviously is dinner with friends. Thank you, Bill.
Or are there places we can spend less money that you have suggestions of? There's two ways to lower a deficit, right? You cut expenses or you increase revenue.
Can we segue? That's a beautiful segue. If there aren't other suggestions, I have 2 things. As
Judy has another longer note here. Shall I read it or shall?
Yes.
Okay. So Judy says, faith community covenant membership. Covenanted membership is suggested to begin at $200 per year. However, we encourage your community to select an amount that works for both your community's annual budget and for your goals for immigrant justice. For example, a $1 contribution per family unit might be appropriate for your congregation. So that's from the Isaac website.
So Isaac is there. Any other suggestions? What do we do more? At the end of this slide is one story. Betsy?
I'll finish your statement.
Okay. The statement that we adopted a deficit budget in faith is based on several other stories. One is there's a new member of our parish who said to Felicia during a coffee hour that she comes here because she is fed here. She also attends Trinity, but she will continue always coming to St. Paul's because this is where she is nourished and fed. Lori Cadridge is sitting here as a new parishioner who made a reply to one of our email exchanges that this is the only place she would ever feel as if she wanted to invite somebody else to come. You heard what Felicia said and her yet another beautiful service.
Just, I can at the end talk to.
Okay. An update on the sign.
Hey, it's coming.
Our application for a variance to put the sign where the current sign exists was denied. And one of our neighbors, the city
Land use planning.
land use plan.
Let's not be the Church of Scientology, okay? And harass individual people.
We
that
will
work
go
there.
back. The point of this story is we can redesign. We know that a digital sign where we wanted it to be located is not going to be located there. So we can go back, we can redesign, we can have a monument sign. There are a number of other solutions. There was a little despondency, as you might imagine, after that meeting on Thursday morning, attended by clergy, by representatives. And as I was feeling despondent, Lori Gudem invited me to think deeper, to go a little deeper. And in doing so, it occurred to me that I am the sign, and you are the sign, and you're the sign. we can be the sign and invite people into our congregation because we have so many blessings to share. So that's my concluding comment. Betsy?
There's been a bulletin board that's been updated every so often out in the fellowship hall there, or right above our table there. And on the table, there's a box with all kinds of summaries for all the ministries. The bulletin board had the ministry moments, we called it. And if you want to know more about the ministries, or like say Habitat for Humanity or whatever, the social justice group, it's all there. There are lots of little handouts. You can just kind of file through and look pretty easily. So just FYI on that. Thanks.
Thank you, Betsy.
I just wanted to echo the thanks that has been shared by those up here for your generous donations, not just financial, but there are a lot of churches who tell me that they're struggling after COVID to get volunteers. I haven't experienced that at St. Paul's. That doesn't mean that someone lets go of a particular, something that they've overseen and someone else steps in. But when we've made an ask, the volunteers have been there. And I think that is a sign of vitality. And one other sign of vitality is a new ministry that's starting at St. Paul's. You may have seen it in the epistle this last Thursday. It's a ministry of healing prayer that's going to be offered during the service, during communion. And there's a group of 4 people who have been meeting together since the fall, studying the miracles of Jesus and reading books on healing. And they are going to be available to lay hands on people and offer healing prayer. And I've just listened to their excitement about joining together, about studying Jesus's miracles, and I've seen them form into the body of Christ in a especially unique way. That is another sign of vitality. I think we at St. Paul's have something that has survived COVID. And I think it's something to share, and I'm really excited about it. Yes, we have a deficit budget, but we have so many blessings. And so thank you for continuing to give your time, talent, and treasure. And as just one parting note, we do have another, what we're calling on-ramps. These are things that we can invite people to that might not be as scary as inviting them to a Sunday morning worship service. One of them was the food truck event that we had in the fall, where we had music and food trucks, and we invited our neighbors, and some of you invited your neighbors. So we're going to try to have quarterly easy on-ramps to invite people to. This one is a little different, but it's a fraud presentation given by one of the members of the Fort Collins Police Department that Betsy has spearheaded. We have flyers for this. It's February the 18th on a Saturday, and we're inviting the community just to step inside to come and see. It's not about church necessarily, but we believe we don't want people to be taken advantage of. And so this is a presentation about how we can prevent being scammed. And so if you have a bulletin board in your neighborhood that you might be able to attach this to, we invite you to take one of these home with you today. So thank you all. You are a blessing and a gift, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.